It is mailbag time here on Falcons Today. I'm answering questions that came in during our live show, which airs every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Quick reminder, though, for today's episode, scroll on down, click the like button if you haven't already, and do it on every episode if you don't mind. It's a great way to support the channel. Now let's get into our first question on today's mailbag, coming in from Liam. Could you see the Falcons trading Kirk for Jermaine Johnson, the second from the Jets? Jermaine Johnson, the second, not the second-round pick. I was a big fan of Jermaine Johnson as a prospect coming out of Florida State. He did suffer a season-ending, I think it was an Achilles injury early on this past season or the season before, so the production won't jump out to you, but I'm not too turned off by a injury early in your career because we've come a long way in the medical field, and younger players can bounce back pretty well from those injuries. But I don't think the Jets are going to part ways with Jermaine Johnson, especially for Kirk Cousins. I think the Jets are actually probably more content with Tyrod Taylor than we realize to be their quarterback. So the Jets, they might inquire about Cousins, but not for a player that was taken in the first round, no. Vincent Cutts, hoping we re-sign Simmons and Judon and trade for Garrett or Parsons and draft Will Johnson. That's a lot right there. I'm going to push back on the re-signing of Judon. I don't mind re-signing Simmons because while he probably wasn't as explosive of a playmaker that we would have hoped he could have been this past season, I don't think he was downright awful. But I don't sense a reunion in the making. I really don't sense a reunion in the making for Judon. As for Garrett or Parsons, Garrett requesting a trade, far more likely. My gut tells me the Cowboys, they're going to try and keep things interesting and stay in the news, but they're not actually going to end up dealing Parsons. And yes, I agree. Will Johnson is my dream pick for Atlanta at 15. I'm telling you right now, give it 3 years, and the first time someone does a redraft of the 2025 NFL Draft, Will Johnson will go at minimum, if he's taken 15, 5, 6, 7 spots earlier in a redraft. Aiden Stackhouse, with Michael Penix Jr. saying he still believes in Kyle Pitts, do you think he can bring the best out of Pitts next year? If you are a second-year quarterback, you should say you believe in everyone. You are not at the liberty to be in front of a microphone and bashing teammates. So, yeah, no surprise here that he is going to support his teammates while he is on the same roster as them. I would hope that, but I am losing faith in Pitts being successful in Atlanta. There's just too many data points to point to he is not living up to expectations, and maybe one day he will, but I don't think it's going to happen in ATL. Literally Todd Gurley. What do you think about trading for Ric Woolen? So that's the Seahawks corner who is opposite of Devin Witherspoon, their 5th overall pick a few years ago out of Illinois. I am open to the idea from a surface level standpoint. Now, this past season, he was not a good fit in Seattle, a.k.a. he clashed with the head coach a lot. There was a benching at some point. There was some team discipline going on. He's, I would say, always been, but he's been a little bit of a diva. But he was a Pro Bowler in 2022 as a rookie, a 5th-round draft pick, putting up 6 interceptions and 16 pass breakups. Now, I don't expect corners to have the same amount of interceptions year to year. If you have a lot one year, no one wants to throw to you the next year. So I'm open to the idea. It really comes down to, do you want to trade for a player or re-sign Mike Hughes and not give up any draft capital? Atlanta only has 5 draft picks. My suspicion is they're going to end up with more, not less, by trading back at some points in the draft, not by giving up 20, 40% of their draft arsenal. So I'd probably prefer the re-signing route, but I do think there is a lot to like about Woolen's game. I don't think Atlanta is going to be in the interest or in the market for trading for corners at this point. Carson, thoughts on the Mike Green off-the-field character concern rumors? So, Carson, glad you kind of asked this because I was not really aware. I was loosely aware that there was something that happened when he transferred from Virginia to Marshall. But I'm not a Virginia fan. I'm not a Marshall fan. And I'm not a college football blog boy on the message boards to really get into the juicy details. But I had heard that something happened when he left Virginia that led him to enter the transfer portal. He was invited to the NFL Combine. I am sure teams are going to want to learn about Green, the person, because we hear all these crazy and wild draft stories about how they ask bizarre questions at these meetings and whatnot, and we probably forget to incorporate the human side into our pre-draft evaluation. We usually just base it off of production and how tall, fat, or skinny and fast they are. So I don't have any concerns because I don't know what the issue was. I don't know what happened. I've never spoken to Mike Green, but there's some concerns with Mike Green, or at least enough to have a conversation about it with him. Poison Ivy. What is a surprise cut and a surprise signing that is doable and why? Okay, good question. Surprise cut, I think, would be from an actual money saving standpoint because they might cut some guys that are just because they're not good. I would say Caleb McGarry would be a surprise. I don't think it's like some foregone conclusion that Atlanta's going to release their starting right tackle, who's one of the best run blockers in the game. He's not a fan favorite, and he is not the best in pass protection, but I think it would still catch me a little bit off guard, and I'm not going to go as far to say guarantee McGarry gets cut. So I would say Caleb, but I don't know if that's like a huge surprise to you. I don't have a juicier name beyond that. As for a surprise signing, I can just think of names that we've kind of talked about on the show. Maybe they go after a bigger name corner. That would be a surprise to me. Like Byron Murphy from the Vikings. If they want to pair him with AJ Terrell, that's financially doable, but I would suspect they don't go for a splash free agent signing at corner. They probably want to do that at edge rusher, and that could be like Khalil Mack. Before we get on to the rest of the questions on today's episode, I do have to give a big shout out to our friends over at Factor. Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They are dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes. So you can fuel up and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. You can reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that can't be beat. Now, I love Factor when it comes to trying to eat a little bit better, eat a little bit healthier without doing a whole bunch of work in the kitchen. Factor takes all that away from you, and it's ready to roll in just a few minutes. So eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/FalconsChat50off and use code FalconsChat50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code FalconsChat50off at factormeals.com/FalconsChat50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Emmanuel, any chance we trade back in round 1 and double dip in rounds 1 and 2 for a pass rusher? Emmanuel, I think there's a good chance that Atlanta could move back from 15. It's a very deep edge rusher defensive line class in general. For reference, at last year's combine, 25 defensive tackles were invited. This year, 41. So if Atlanta feels like, hey, the guy we get at 15 at the edge spot and the guy we get at 22 at the edge spot are not miles apart, it might be worth adding an extra second round pick given you only have 5 picks, 2 of which I think are just worthless. They're 7th rounders. So 3 decent picks in the first 4 rounds of the draft, but nothing in round 3, Judon trade, nothing in round 5, tampering, allegedly. So yeah, Emmanuel, I think there is a good chance Atlanta tries to trade back a little bit, but as always, it takes 2 to tango. You got to find a team that wants to trade up. Archangel, what could have the most impact on our defense this year? Our new defensive coach, free agency, or simply hitting in the draft? Good question. I'm going to lean towards the player side. Players play coaches coach. And step one for fixing Atlanta's defense is addressing the pass rush. The secondary at times last year was not great, but you're not going to go anywhere if you can't get to the quarterback. So now you come to the free agency or hitting on the draft fork in the road. I would say the draft part. It's not a tremendous free agency class at pass rusher. Like last year, you had Danielle Hunter, Jonathan Grenard. Those are two big names right there. Andrew Van Ginkel. There's none of those guys in this draft class. There's no Danielle Hunter. There's no Jonathan Grenard. I don't think there's anyone in this. I might be wrong. I don't think there's any pass rusher in this free agency grouping that had 10 or more sacks this past year. Maybe Josh Sweat from the Eagles, but Josh Sweat is too inconsistent for me to actually give real edge rusher money to. So I would say hitting in the draft. Is Villa, what are the odds we make little to no moves and just make our additions in the draft? Would you support that? I think there's a decent chance of that. And that's not the fun answer, but if you're Atlanta, like how about this? Compared to the Texans, they saw the success they had with C.J. Stroud. So they go into the offseason, they trade for Stephon Diggs, they sign Danielle Hunter, right? They make all these big, splashy moves because they feel like now is the time to strike. Atlanta may not feel like now is the time to strike and overpay average players to guarantee they come to our team when you still got to figure out, like, do we have a surefire thing with 9? Might feel good about it, but we need to see a little bit more. So with them being in the negative right now for the salary cap and not having a ton of draft capital, I don't think they're going to be big fish when the offseason rolls around. ZD Productions, are we getting a new O-line for Penix because he is left-handed? The change you would make is Caleb McGarry at right tackle. If I could ask Raheem Morris one question, it would be, 1, are you playing Madden to learn how to manage a clock? And then 2, do you plan on switching Matthews and McGarry this offseason? Because I don't think it's a good idea to just fingers crossed and hope McGarry decides he'll be a better pass protector this year. There should be some plan. We'll find out what it is, but offensive line plans are kind of tough to predict from afar because they're so rooted in like the offensive line coach. And those guys, they're not there to put out fun, leaky splash rumors. They're there to hit people and play football. Phoenix, PD, what would you expect in return for a pitch trade? Good question, Phoenix. If Atlanta eats a lot of his $10 million, you could probably get a third-round pick. Although, if the other team did not know Kyle Pitts was taken 4th overall, and they saw 2 straight seasons of 600 yards and 3 to 4 touchdowns, would you trade third-round pick for that? No. So I think what's more likely is you probably get like a 4th and a 6th. Maybe a day 3 pick swap where you get a 4th and they get your 7th. I think you're looking at day 3 picks. Grand Limousine, doesn't Kirk have to agree to a trade? Yes. Kirk Cousins has a no trade clause. Atlanta cannot just ship him off willy-nilly wherever they want. Now, the card the Falcons could pull if they want to make a trade but Kirk says no to it is, all right, Kirk, you made your bed, now you're going to sleep in it. We're not trading you, and we're not going to release you, and you're going to be a backup here. Or you can go to this team where they want you to start. Your call. We'll see if Atlanta would want to keep Cousins hostage in this stare down or just say, fine, we're going to release you and move on. I don't think they're going to try and keep him hostage. I don't think Cousins will be on this roster beyond March 17th. Super chat coming in from Jaden. Jaden, thank you so much for the super. Really appreciate it, my guy. Malik Neighbors and Brock Bowers, etc. thought they all have bad quarterback play. They are the main targets. Kyle is on an offense where there's a top 3 running back and 2 1,000-yard receivers on the same. I think there's more to it. Yeah, Jaden, I'm not quite sure what point you're trying to make here, but Yeah, Malik Neighbors and Brock Bowers were both good premium draft picks and both made like a lot of production without having a lot around them. So I think if we're on the same page here, it's Pitts. There's clearly yards to be had. This offense is moving down the field. What's the expression like? Quiet mouths don't get fed. Like, go out there and take it. And he has not done that so far. So if he does not see an increase in his role for the upcoming season, I don't see the justification for passing on a draft pick for him and getting salary cap relief in the process. Last question coming in from my burner, which I can't believe you found this picture still. What was the most tough Falcons loss? I want to say the Saints game on the road because that was the start of the losing streak. And if Younghoe Koo just makes one more field goal, we're going to overtime. Two more field goals, just 3 for 4, all from close distance. Atlanta wins the game. And fortunately, no. So I would lean towards the Saints game on the road because that began this horrible snowball of going to Denver, getting your teeth kicked in, get the bye, you come back home from the bye, and you play the Chargers, who are on a short week, and Cousins throws more touchdowns to LA than Atlanta. And I'm not sure if those things happen differently, but maybe you have a little bit more momentum if you knock off the Saints. And one more win, you go 9-8, and you could have something more meaningful to play for down the stretch instead of needing so much more help from Tampa Bay. That will do it for us on our mailbag today. Thank you guys so much for watching as always. Make sure to like the video if you have not already, and I'll catch up with you all later.